Delicious warm rolls are very important for any Drummond Thanksgiving dinner, and I have made them every way you can make them. I've made them from scratch. I've bought frozen rolls that are unbaked. I thaw them and bake them. Well, I'm taking the from scratch route this year, but I'm gonna kind of do a little twist and make sweet potato rolls. This is actually a first for me for Thanksgiving, so please say a prayer for me. This could go either way. I'm adding the wet ingredients to a mixer, and it's whole milk, a little bit of lemon juice, a good amount of melted butter, a couple of eggs, whoop, a squeeze of honey, and some grated garlic. These are very flavorful rolls. I think I got all that in there. All right, and then just a packet of instant yeast. I'll sprinkle that in, and I'll turn on the mixer. I'm gonna turn it on low. I just want this to start to mix together. Okay, once you see that everything is pretty well combined, it's time to start adding the sweet potatoes. Now for the sweet potatoes, I used a 10-ounce package of frozen sweet potatoes, and I just put them in the microwave according to the package instructions. And then I took them out of the package and mashed them. So they're nice and warm and they're very, very mashed. So I'm adding them to the milk mixture just to slowly bring it to temperature. And because these are so warm, it's gonna help activate the yeast in the liquid. Okay, thank you mixer, thank you whisk. I'm gonna take the whisk attachment off and switch to the dough hook. And this is gonna help me kind of finish up the dough. All right, I'm gonna turn the mixer back on. I'm gonna sprinkle in a good amount of salt, and it's time to add the flour. This is bread flour, and I'm gonna add it a half a cup at a time. If you overload it, it's kind of hard to get it all mixed together. And you wanna stop when it's still a pretty moist dough. That is looking so good. Oh, the color of sweet potato rolls. Okay, the dough is kind of starting to come away from the sides of the bowl, so I'm just gonna add that last one. I think that's gonna do the trick. Okay, now I'm gonna let the mixer do the muscle work and knead the dough, and then I'll let it rise and make the rolls. So the kneading takes about 5 minutes. Then when the dough is very smooth, I'll turn off the mixer, tip the dough into a greased bowl, cover it with a cloth, and leave it to rise for 45 minutes to an hour. You need to look at this dough. It's been rising. Oh, didn't I tell you about that color? I'm gonna reach in and grab a nice little portion and roll it into a ball about the size of a golf ball and get it so it's nice and smooth. All right, so that is 1 ball of dough. I'm gonna do 47 more, so I'll have 48 balls of dough, and I'll put 2 balls of dough into each well of these muffin tins. Wish me luck. So that's the first 12, then 12 more. Next, all I have to do is brush the tops with melted butter so they have a shiny golden crust when they come out of the oven. The rolls haven't even baked yet, and they already look so good. Before they bake, I want to sprinkle them with a little bit of chopped sage, and that'll just give them a little extra flavor. Sage I associate with Thanksgiving 100%. I'm being pretty generous, and ooh, it smells so good. All right, I got them all sprinkled, and now a little bit of sea salt on top of each one. Okay, now I'm gonna let them rise for 30 minutes, and then I'll pop them in the oven. So when they've risen, I'll bake them at 375 degrees, and after 15 minutes, they're golden, delicious, and perfect for the feast. Oh, hi. You caught me just admiring these beautiful rolls. So I want to show you, woo, how beautiful these are. I'm going to break this open. Look at that color. It's gorgeous. It's just kind of that light orange tint. It's not overwhelming at all. Just looks and smells delicious. I smell that sage that baked into the top of the rolls. So the very best way to serve these is just to spread some softened butter on both halves. And isn't that nice just how they perfectly break in half? All right. I know I said that the green bean casserole was going to be the star of the show, but I think I'd like to change my answer to these rolls. You've got to make these. Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Put those in the food processor with Parmesan cheese. Buzz them up really, really well. Take this and butter these ramekins very, very liberally.
Okay.
Then put a lot of butter in. These are souffle molds. Okay, put a lot of butter. I want you to dredge them in a good amount of these and save me some for the top. Okay.
Okay, you got it.
But really, really be liberal on the butter. This is really important. And I use butter that's not melted because it really adheres better, I feel. We're gonna take these beautiful sweet potatoes. We're gonna put them in cold water. We're gonna cook them probably about 10 or 15 minutes until they are very, very cooked.
With the skin on?
With the skin on.
Sure.
We're gonna peel them and we're gonna make a beautiful puree, which is right here.
Ooh,
Okay.
nice.
Okay.
So the base of any souffle, when you're making a savory souffle, is a bechamel. You need the bechamel to sort of give it some density. And since sweet potato is a very dense ingredient, it needs lift, so it also needs help from the bechamel. All right, so we're gonna make a blonde roux, which is just equal parts butter and flour here. It's very warm, and we have on the fire milk. Remember, when you're making a souffle and a bechamel, you wanna have both liquids at the same temperature so it avoids clumping and lumping. You don't want any lump, no lumpage. Okay, so we're gonna put this in here. Remember, hot liquid into hot flour roux. We're gonna let that cook down. To that, we're gonna add some nutmeg. Then we are gonna let that cook about 15, maybe 10 or 15 minutes because it's nice and thick. We're gonna stir it all the time. And then you have it like this. This is cool. We're gonna put the entire contents of the cool bechamel into the bowl. We are gonna add our sweet potato puree. We're gonna add 3 egg yolks and some more Parmesan cheese. One part, you're gonna put a little bit of the egg white in and just go at it. You don't have to be gentle.
Okay.
Okay. Just to incorporate
So
the little
this is just whipped
structure.
egg white.
Just whipped egg whites, okay? The second part, I'm just gonna bring it back a bit.
There you go. Look at this guy. Still
This
got
is
it.
six
Hey,
eggs
we've
whites.
seen them in the gym.
Fold inward, over, inward, over, inward, over while you're turning the bowl.
That's it.
We're gonna put these in here and we're gonna try to go a little bit in each so we don't lose.
And they'll puff up.
They will
right?
puff up. People always undercook the souffle. They see it going up, they get all excited, and they pull it out. It has to go up and it has to sit up for a while so the sides get really cooked and they solidify. And the center is the wettest part, so that has to get some heat. If that doesn't get heat, it's gonna fall quickly.
Yep.
Okay, we're gonna take the remaining mixture, not all of it, and just have some fun on the
Yeah, I
top,
would
because this is
like
the
triple that.
this is the
Yeah.
flavor of the whole souffle right here. 375 for about 40 minutes.
Wow.
Those are beautiful.
Sweet potato and celery root fries. I bake them till perfectly crisp outside and fluffy inside. Now that's a sunny fry. We're gonna start with some cayenne pepper. And this is really, really good and quick too. 450 in an oven, quick to make. We're gonna do a little bit of garlic powder. Then some Hungarian paprika. Nice smoky flavor. And then finally, the major spices is going to be my Chinese 5-spice. Now, I love Chinese 5-spice now. Never had in my kitchen before. And then I went to the grocery store, I saw it, and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna buy it and commit to using it eventually. So in here, a hint of cinnamon, some fennel seed, cloves, star anise, and Szechuan peppercorn. So the cool thing about this is, it's like a complete seasoning thing all in one. Dump it in, and you got that hint of cinnamon that I really love to go with the sweet potatoes. All right, so a little bit of salt, some pepper, and that's it. This is gonna go great on top of our sweet potatoes and our celery root fries. We're gonna roast in the oven. All right, so we're gonna take 2 sweet potatoes and a celery root. Ever seen this one before? Well, if you haven't seen this before, you're right in line with my grocery store, because every time I go to buy it, I have to tell them what it is so they can ring it up properly. Basically, this is a root. Stalks come out and they look like celery, but not the celery that you eat. But this root has such an intense celery flavor. I love it. All right, got these all done. Sweet potatoes and celery root ready to be roasted in our oven. Get these all on the baking sheet. Looks like I have too many. All right, so I don't want to crowd them. When we put them on the baking sheet, we want to crisp them into fries. The whole idea is to give them plenty of space, all right? So that looks like they all have room to breathe. Gonna drizzle over some oil. Cooking oil or olive oil, this is gonna really taste great. And then sprinkle on half of our spice blend. You really gotta try the Chinese spice, man. I'm really into buying things new that I've never used before and working them into some recipes. It's not too bad of a deal. All right. The reason for the oil is we wanna make sure the seasoning sticks on to our celery root and our sweet potato. And at the same time, it also helps with it crisping. So this is going into a 450-degree oven, about 30 to 40 minutes. Just check it, give them a shake halfway through so they don't get all toasted to one side and not the other. And then you're a step away from eating your sweet potato and celery root fries. Roasted sweet potato fries and our celery root fries. Never had a celery root before? Roast it in the oven, give it a try and a taste. It's really good. The flavor is amazing. And then, you know what I'm tasting now? That Chinese 5 spice. It really works in this recipe.
So sweet potatoes we're gonna make a puree out of. 4 large sweet potatoes here. And what we're gonna do is kind of put these guys over here in the pan, and then we're gonna take a fork and just kind of pierce, all right, the skin a little bit to let out some of the steam once they start to get nice and hot. And all that moisture inside the potato wants to go someplace, right? If you ever had a potato blow up on you in the oven, you'll never not do this again. All right, so a couple of holes in these guys, and they're gonna hit with some extra virgin olive oil right on top. And I'm doing this because I want the salt and pepper to stick. Okay, this is gonna be sort of a balance in between savory and sweet. Salt, boom, pepper, and the oven, 350 degrees, 45 minutes, or until a paring knife or a fork goes in the potato and out without any resistance. You're in good shape. All right, cool, in the oven. Bang. So we got a little bit of heavy cream here. So we're gonna warm up in a pot, right? So when you're making a potato puree, you never wanna use cold cream because it's gonna bring the temperature of the potato down. And then we're gonna hit it with a bay leaf and just let this start to warm up. And this is gonna infuse. Bay leaf's gonna give it sort of a slight savory flavor. It's gonna be really nice. Take a look at these guys. Aren't these gorgeous? Gigantic sweet potatoes. These things look delicious. The color is sensational. And guys, when we come right back, I'll show you how to make the ultimate sweet potato puree. Whoa, hot potato, guys. Take a look at this. We're making the ultimate. So we got sweet potatoes here. Now we're gonna give these guys some flavor here. I got some cinnamon. And like sweet potatoes and cinnamon, they're like Bert and Ernie. They're like peanut butter and chocolate. All right, here we go. We got that on top. All right, nutmeg, freshly grated. To me, that's really the only way to go. It smells great, all right? Fresh nutmeg, right on top. And they're gonna hit it with some orange, okay? Now, I love orange in this dish. And a lot of people say that the flavor is in the juice. I completely disagree. I think the flavor is in the essential oils and the skin, all right? So we got orange zest. It smells great, okay? And brown sugar is really delicious with this because, you know, it's got the natural molasses into it. It hasn't been refined yet, so it just has a really clean flavor to it. All right, so about 2 tablespoons of some light brown sugar around top. Got a little bit of cream with a bay leaf. We just kind of steeped in. All right, we're gonna add the cream to that. And again, this is gonna make a delicious side dish. All right, bay leaves are coming out. A tablespoon of whole butter right on top. And ladies and gentlemen, once you taste this recipe, this will be the sweet potato puree that you make for years to come. I'm gonna hit it with a little bit of salt as well. All right, bang. Put the lid on and buzz it away. The ultimate sweet potato puree, right here. All right, boom. It's absolutely beautiful. Look at the color in this. Isn't this great? Can you see this on a plate already? With some gorgeous sticky glazed ribs and some collard greens. Look at that, isn't that gorgeous? All right, so we're gonna take our sweet potato puree. All right, we're gonna put it back into the pot that it came in. All right, to keep it nice and warm, all right? Look at that, oh, it's awesome. And we're gonna be ready to go. So when the ribs are perfect and sticky and the collards are nice and soft, our sweet potatoes are gonna be hot, all right? And we've got a sensational Southern meal set up. Look at that. All right. Lid, boom, one nice big scoop. All right, you can't start talking about good Southern cooking with a nice big scoop of perfectly prepared sweet potatoes. We roast them first, so we kept all the color. Look at that, isn't that gorgeous?
First of all, they're delicious, but second, they're just a glorious, deep purple color, and they make the most beautiful soup. And this is one of those soups that you can make for company or just for your kids on a weeknight. I just fried bacon in a big Dutch oven, and then I took the bacon out of the pan. So into the same pot, I added sliced red onion, some minced garlic, oregano and thyme, and I'm just stirring it around. Oh, it smells so incredible. And look at this pan, Paige. Look at the bottom of this pan. Look at all that flavor in there.
Yum.
Now that is the start of a delicious soup right there. Okay, so now I'm gonna add the purple sweet potatoes, AKA purple yams. You can find these really in specialty grocery stores year round, or like regular supermarkets, sometimes get them in the fall. I love any root vegetable soup, and so you could actually use all sweet potatoes, or you could use sweet potatoes and turnips or parsnips. You could sort of do a root vegetable celebration. I like going all purple. It just kind of drives that point home. So I've got the potatoes and the onions all mixed together. So I'm gonna cook this mixture for 3 minutes. Alrighty, so those have kind of had a chance to start cooking. So I'm gonna add some cumin. Yummy, yummy with sweet potato soup. And coriander, another great fall spice, and some salt and pepper. And then I'll give it a quick stir just so the spices kind of coat the potatoes and the onions. My gosh, I love this soup. So I'm gonna add the broth. I'm using vegetable broth, and you can use chicken broth if you're not interested in it being like vegetarian. I just picked vegetable because usually when I make like a root vegetable soup, I'll use vegetable broth. But any kind of broth will do. So 1 carton plus a cup or so. Okay, give it one more stir. And now we just have to be patient. I'm gonna crank up the heat, bring this to a boil, and let it cook for 15 minutes, and then I'll finish it up. Okay, the soup's just about done, so I'm going to make an incredible topping that is part of the wonder of the soup, and it's part of what makes it so pretty too. So the bacon that I cooked in the pot, right from the top, I'm chopping it up, and it's gonna be part of the topping. Okay, so I've got a little bowl, and I'm gonna put the bacon in the bowl, and then I have some other things to add to the bacon. Pistachios, chopped pistachios, they're so pretty. And then chopped parsley, and chopped oregano, and then a little bit of turmeric. A little goes a long way, so don't go overboard. And then I'll get a little spoon and stir it together. But you could do any combination of herbs and nuts.
That looks so good.
It does look good, doesn't it? All right, so now back to the soup. Time to puree. So look at this first page. I'll show you what it looks like. See those sweet potatoes? They're pretty much falling apart, and that's the stage that you want to get it to before you puree. So I'm going to use an immersion blender. That way I don't have to take it out of the pot. Wish me luck. I'm going in. All right. Paige, come take a look at this. Did I promise you purple soup or what? Isn't that pretty? But it's not like obnoxious purple. It's like beautiful, deep, earthy purple. Okay, so I'm gonna show you how pretty it is to serve. Plain bowl. Gonna fill it with the soup. And you don't actually have to fill the bowl because that would be a lot of soup.
That really is purple.
It's pretty, isn't it? All right. Ooh, that looks good. And then a little bit of sour cream. Ooh. And then the moment Paige has been waiting for. Okay. Just a little sprinkle. Isn't that pretty?
Oh, that's so pretty.
Gorgeous. I love it. This soup is delicious.
I'm gonna show you how to make a really quick, sort of almost like a steak fry on the grill, but using sweet potatoes. We have our sweet potatoes that we parboiled, so they're really soft all the way through. I call this backyard cheating, right? You wanna par cook them. This way, you're gonna guarantee yourself a nice tender sweet potato, and then we're gonna put them on the grill for all that smoky flavor. Cut them in nice big wedge. This way, you'll have a better chance of them not falling through the grates. If you lose one or two, that's part of grilling, it's part of the barbecue. It's okay. So I'm just gonna brush this with a little bit of canola oil, just a tiny bit so it doesn't stick to the grill. Some salt and pepper. Now, when I set up my grill, I like to use a combination of charcoal briquettes and also some hardwood charcoal. I like to have a hot part of the grill and then another part where there's no charcoal. All right, we have our sweet potatoes. We're gonna put these on the hot part of the grill. We don't want these to cook slowly. We actually want them to cook kind of quickly because remember, they're already par cooked and I just want a nice crust on the outside. It's really important to just let the grill do its job at this point. You want them to get nice and crusty. If you keep moving them around, you're not gonna achieve any color at all. And they'll probably stick to the grill. So we're just gonna let them cook on one side, and while that's happening, we're gonna throw together our very quick dipping sauce. It's just a couple of ingredients, so let's make it happen. Some Dijon mustard, some whole grain mustard. We're gonna grab some honey. Honey and mustard, great combination, goes fantastic with sweet potatoes. Dijon mustard has got a nice spicy flavor to it, and it's nice and smooth. The whole grain mustard, also spicy, but it's got those mustard seeds running through it, so it gives it a little bit of crunch. A little salt and pepper. I can hear my sweet potatoes grilling away. These are ridiculous, but I have to use them. Baby whisk. These are beautiful. All right. And then some fresh mint. Grab our sweet potatoes. If one or two of them get a little charred, that's okay. They're not all gonna be perfect. That one's perfect. Sweet potatoes. Take some of our dipping sauce. See, that's the key. It's all about making it so easy for yourself. If you have the sweet potatoes part cooked, you have a dipping sauce ready to go, 3 ingredients, and we have sweet potato fries. I boiled the sweet potatoes first, and I like to cook them almost all the way because I'm gonna put them on the grill, but I'm gonna put them on sort of a cooler part of the grill, sort of indirect heat as well. I'm just gonna be reheating them. All right, so here's a trick. I take these tongs, these wooden tongs, and I just make slices. Whoops. That didn't work. You don't want to go all the way down. This is just a guide, but you want to go about 3/4 of the way down. Okay, and then all the flavors kind of drip in there. We're gonna use molasses and nutmeg and some rum. Now we're gonna put these on the grill. Now don't forget, they're basically cooked all the way through, but I'm just gonna reheat them, get a little charred flavor on there. I've created 2 zones here, hot, not hot. So lots of charcoal here and none here. I'm gonna put them down where the charcoal is not. I don't want these to burn, I just want them to heat through. So while that's cooking, let's make our butter. It's a little bit of molasses, some unsalted butter that's softened. some orange zest. I have whole nutmeg here. A lot of people haven't seen this before. I think it's a really cool whole spice. I'll show you what it looks like on the inside of the nutmeg. Very cool. And then some salt and pepper, some fresh cilantro. You'll see lots of sweet potatoes or yams, depending on who you're talking to in the Caribbean. And lots of sugar cane there. And molasses is an ingredient that goes really well, especially for things like jerk rub, because it's very, very spicy. So you want something a little bit sweet, but it's not overpoweringly sweet. It's a little tart and sweet at the same time. That's why I'm so excited about this kind of food, because the flavors just work so well together. There's lots of different spices working in unison, but when you put them all together, it just makes an explosion of flavors. Just combine all these ingredients together. I'm gonna get the sweet potatoes off the grill. Make sure they're nice and hot. Yeah, good, because we want the butter to melt. The idea is to let the butter just kind of melt in between every cut of the sweet potato. And a little extra. This is good tasting butter. Kind of open up the slices a little bit. Beautiful. All right, just gonna flambe a little bit of dark rum, distilled in Jamaica, of course. Cook a little bit of the alcohol out. So we're gonna let that burn off a little bit. Okay. I'm just gonna pour some of the flambéed rum right on top. Smells good. Now those are some sweet potatoes. I'm a huge sweet potato fan. If you put this butter on there with the molasses, the rum, a little bit of orange, it's just gonna wake up the sweet potatoes, gives it so much flavor. And these ingredients go so well with the natural sweetness of the sweet potatoes. Plus, look how beautiful they are.
An American twist on a shepherd's pie with my sweet potato and turkey shepherd's pie.
Aren't you fancy?
We did a little dice of carrots and celery and onions. I feel like we always have that in the fridge hanging around. Those 2 carrots left in the bag that are kind of lonely.
Sad, they're sad.
You have some fully baked sweet potatoes,
Yes.
Sunny. These are just baked in the oven, literally with nothing. We're just gonna peel them.
Okay.
Pop them in the food processor to make a little rustic puree. And I've got a pound of ground turkey, just browning away with a lot of salt and pepper.
Where did the term shepherd's pie come from?
I assume it comes from
Gotta be from shepherds, right?
connection between the lamb and the shepherd. Okay, so we have in here a pound of ground turkey that I've just browned off. And the browning is so important to just start developing that flavor. Same pan, I'm taking Sunny's absolutely stunning dice of celery, which was peeled, by the way, because we can get a little fancy on a weeknight if we want. So, carrots and celery right where we cook that turkey, so we're soaking up all those flavors. Turkey, healthy because it's lower in saturated fat than beef, but turkey actually has more calories than beef, ground turkey.
Seriously?
But to my mind, turkey is hearty, and ground turkey is satisfying. You eat it and you're not like,
Is that dark meat or white meat?
dark meat. Most ground turkey, by the way, is usually a mix of
Yeah.
light and dark. I like either, honestly, for this. I find the light meat is a little leaner. So if you want to just be a little leaner and cleaner, you can do that. Salt, pepper in here with just some diced red onion, celery, and carrots. And we're just getting that just nice and tender. Just this makes me hungry, honestly. So Sunny has just those sweet potatoes that she's blending up. I have melted a stick of butter, and it's browned. So it has that wonderful flavor. Now here I've got the stick of butter, and I'm just gonna use a little to brush the baking dish while we're doing a little double
gorgeous.
duty. To this brown butter, I'm gonna add a tablespoon of molasses, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar,
And this is all going into the sweet potatoes? Oh, yum.
little nutmeg, about half a teaspoon, and a tablespoon of just ground up ginger.
Oh, yum.
Grated. Wow. This is like the oven-baked version of the slow cooker meal, right? So this is for Sunny. Sunny, this is just to add this wonderful flavor
I was gonna
bomb.
say, I really want to add some olive oil to make this go around, but I'm following you, chef.
Okay, I'm hoping the butter will do the trick. So now when these start to get a little tender, I'm gonna add them right to the meat.
You want a little crunch in there, right, Alex? You want to...
Well, this is gonna get baked in the oven, so you're
Okay,
gonna
I
have
want-
time for those
good.
vegetables to finish up.
So you could, if you, for the home cook, you could make 3 or 4 of these, freeze them, and then you have like...
Absolutely. Any day of the week is the right day of the week for me with frozen peas. I just
Oh,
love them.
does
I
it
have a
frozen
couple
peas?
bags
Wait,
hanging
did
around.
you want any
Always
salt
got
in
'em.
here?
Yes, please. I just add them right in. They can literally just defrost them so the excess liquid, don't cook them at all.
I'm getting pot pie. I'm getting so many different versions of so many little things here. There's a lot of going on.
Little cup of stock in there, and then tablespoon of red wine vinegar just to
knew you
wake
were gonna
everyone
do a
up.
little
I was
vinegar.
waiting. I thought we ran out of vinegar.
Vinegar.
Looking like this, around the corner, all creepily.
We want this at this point to be liquidy because it's gonna bake and do everything. That looks delicious.
Oh, I'd eat that on its own right there.
You did it. You really crushed that. I'm gonna give you also, in addition to the brown butter, some warm milk,
Got you.
which you can add in. I don't add cream to sweet potatoes. I think cream really dulls the flavor. So I like to just add a little milk with that butter, and that feels like Thanksgiving to me.
I'm with you on that, Alex, because I think like when you're making mashed potatoes and you use milk instead of cream, they have a lighter texture too. They're fluffier.
Just for the Thanksgiving vibes, couple grates of orange zest and the juice from the orange itself. And then we just start layering. We layer and we bake, right? It's so exciting the way this, and you could totally put this together, come home, throw it in the oven, and there's nothing, right? So the kitchen looks kind of quiet. Everybody's like, wait, where's dinner? And you're like, oh, excuse
Bubbling
me.
away, huh?
Got this mix, and you see it's deliberately liquidy because we want that steam from beneath to just moisturize this whole thing while it's baking. You know what I mean? We're moisturizing.
Cheapers,
It's
creepers.
Thursday.
This is
It's Friday
Thursday.
Junior, people.
I'm calling it Friday Senior now. I'm excited about this. I don't know what's going
Baby
on.
Friday.
I
This
mean,
just goes
Friday's
in.
gonna have a lot to live up to.
I know. I don't know what we're
after
making for that,
Thursday.
but
And by the way, you could skip the celery, carrot, onion, and just do the turkey and the
Or
peas.
leftovers. Or leftovers. Whatever you have in the box. And it's
scallions.
chopped up.
Yeah. I like when I put something like this together and I don't even wanna bake it. I wanna eat it right away.
it's a good sign.
And now we're just gonna gently start, gently, snow on the cedars, little Bob Ross here,
Y'all ever heard of sweet potato dip?
right on, gently on top. I'm gonna get this into the oven. I baked it at 375 degrees for about 30 to 35 minutes. Let's check it out. Geoffrey is hungry. I can always tell. He follows you to the oven, right?
He preloaded his fork right there.
Look at that. Put that
Because
right
it's
here.
too far in the carafe.
It's ready.
The Thanksgiving vibes are on.
Yeah,
That's a
it's
show.
Friendsgiving. This is perfect
That's a
for
showstopper
Friendsgiving.
right there.
Yeah,
Showstopper.
take a nose bath. Come on. You know what I mean? Get a nose bath in there.
That's what-
This
It
is
is.
better than like a good candle.
And the sugars in the
In the
sweet
bath.
potatoes have like changed. They've gone deep. Oh,
Come on, girl. Come on, girl.
Oh, look at that.
No. I went a little light for you, a little high protein. Now, don't be tacky and take all the sweet potato topping.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You know, it has like a
mean.
meatloaf vibe going on, I must
Yeah, I can
say.
see that.
Can you have me one of your chairs back
So good.
It actually is light. It doesn't, you think it's heavy, it's not. It's a perfect weeknight meal.
Peel the sweet potatoes. Make sure you get all of the skin off. Okay. Now we can actually slice the sweet potatoes, and this is known as a Japanese mandolin, Japanese slicer. They're very, very sharp, so you need to be careful. And I'm gonna get these very thin slices of sweet potatoes. Now, once it gets close to the blade, don't take the risk. There's always another sweet potato, but there may not be another finger. See, I stop right about there. Okay, now we have the sweet potatoes and some heavy cream and some chipotle puree. And basically what's gonna happen is we're gonna layer the sweet potatoes into this pan. A layer of sweet potatoes, a layer of the cream. We're gonna flavor the cream with the chipotles until it gets to the top, and then we're gonna bake it in the oven. So let's begin. The first thing we need to do is make the chipotle cream. So we're just gonna pour the cream into this bowl and then put some of the chipotle puree in here. And you know, the chipotles are gonna be smoky, they're gonna be fiery, and they lend itself really well to the sweet potatoes because when they cook, the natural sugars come out of the sweet potatoes, and the balance between the sweetness of the sweet potatoes, the heavy cream, and the smokiness of the chipotles go really well together. Okay, let's begin. So we just layer the sweet potatoes down. And then a layer of the cream. Very thin layer. Just a little bit to cover. Then you just keep repeating the process. Be careful not to put too much cream down, because you don't want it to get too soupy. And then about every 3 or 4 layers, just a little salt and pepper to make sure all those flavors come together. If it's starting to get a little soupy, you can just kind of force the liquid to the top. See that? Okay. We're gonna put this in the oven at 375 degrees for, about an hour. See how it's bubbling on the outside? And this is what you want to see, okay? How the cream has become part of the sweet potatoes. That means that the cream is reduced in the oven and, sort of thickened and made the sweet potatoes and the cream and the chipotles all just one big, luscious sight.
I have a skillet going, and come look at these mushrooms, Paige. I cooked the sliced mushrooms in a little bit of bacon grease. I sauteed the bacon earlier, and then I cooked the mushrooms. So now I'm gonna move forward with the carbonara sauce, and I'm adding, what is this, garlic? Adding garlic and a pinch of crushed red pepper flakes and some salt. I'm holding my sleeve, don't be concerned, and pepper. And then I'll start stirring it around until I smell that garlic. So when everything's sizzling, I've got some baby kale, and you can also use baby spinach. The baby kale kind of stays together a little bit better, in my opinion. Okay, so look at this mixture, Paige. How good does this look?
Yummy.
Delicious. All right, so now it's time for the noodles. So I'm gonna get this whole bunch, and it looks like a lot, but it was only like 3 sweet potatoes. That's what I love about spiralizing vegetables. Whether it's zucchini or carrots or sweet potatoes, it kind of grows as you go. Okay, and then I'm gonna pour in some water, which is gonna help make the noodles a little bit tender. Now, some people boil noodles like this, sweet potato or zucchini noodles. I always find that just makes them fall apart more easily. I like to cook them really gently in a skillet with the rest of the sauce ingredients. I just find they stay together better, and you don't want to just stir and go crazy. You want to treat it with care. So I'm going to sit here and babysit the sweet potato noodles until they start to get tender. Okay, the sweet potato noodles are tender. Look at this, Paige. They look fantastic. I can tell they still have some structure to them. They aren't totally falling apart, and that's good. Now I'm gonna turn off the heat, and I'm going to grab the 4 eggs in a mason jar, whisk them together, and then I'm gonna add some Parmesan, make a mess in the process. I'll add some salt and pepper, and then come look at this, Paige. So this mixture is gonna go into the really hot skillet of sweet potato noodles. You just pour slowly and toss the whole time, and the idea is that the hot water and the heat of the sweet potato noodles will create sort of this thick coating for the noodles, and it just turns into heaven, if you ask me. Okay? And when it's regular pasta, you just wanna toss pretty constantly, and you don't want the eggs to scramble, and actually the Parmesan kind of helps with that. Okay, there's such a fine line between the sauce being lovely and glossy and thick, and then suddenly scrambled eggs showing up. So here we go. Oh, hold on. I didn't cut those quite short enough. And you can see little bits here and there. It doesn't mean it's scrambled eggs, it means it's the Parmesan in the egg mixture. So I'll sprinkle the top with some of the bacon, yum, yum, and then some extra parm. Oh my gosh, this looks so good. And then of course, plenty of parsley. This looks incredible, absolutely gorgeous.
Sweet potato gnocchi in a Parmesan butter sauce. So, great thing about sweet potatoes is, well, people get them mixed up all the time. Is it a yam? Is it a sweet potato? Well, we're talking about the sweet potato, a little less starchy than the yam. So the idea here is cook these off ahead of time, or maybe you have some left over. We're gonna get them cool to the touch, just to where we can kind of handle them a little bit. Poke some holes in them, roasted them off in the oven, just the normal way you'd cook them. And look at that. Look at that beautiful color. Huh? Take this into the bowl. Some grated parm, maybe about a cup. A little olive oil, a couple tablespoons of that. Little brown sugar. I know that we have the sweetness of the sweet potato going on, but a little brown sugar will go a long way. A little salt and pepper. There we go. And here's where we really start adding the subtle flavor, but the flavor that everybody go like, why? Why does this gnocchi taste so fantastic? It's this. We're gonna use a little thyme, a little fresh thyme. So a little bit of thyme. And last but not least, say holidays, what do you think? You think nothing. Okay, lock that down. Let that slowly whip together there for a second. Turn it up. We're gonna really let that fluff up. We're really gonna put a lot of air into that and aerate it. It's gonna be nice, and that'll help it get nice and creamy. Because remember, on a gnocchi, you don't want those dense little hard pillows. You want to be nice, light, and fluffy. Now this right here looks like pumpkin pie filling, just in the savory sense. Bring this off. Get a little bench flour here. Now I was gonna be using maybe up to 2 cups of flour for this, but we're really gonna be looking for what the texture of this is gonna look like. I want it to be a little bit pliable. Seems like a little now, but there's a ton of flavor in that. And again, just the opportunity to repurpose that sweet potato. Could have been left over. You know how you have the big Thanksgiving party the night before? Well, the great thing is you could cook off those sweet potatoes, had them done and ready to go. Just one less thing that you have to cook on the actual big turkey day. Okay. There we go. Get a little more flour right up on top of that. Lightly start putting it together. Oh, this is perfect. Making gnocchi, it takes a lot of time. Well, it doesn't take a lot of time. It takes patience because you're working with something really super delicate. So what I've got here is some sweet potatoes I cooked ahead of time, made this fantastic little mixture with a little bit of thyme, a lot of Parmesan cheese, and some olive oil. And now I'm just lightly kneading in the flour. It's not an exact science because I don't know how many sweet potatoes I'm gonna have and how wet they're going to be. So I'm just working them enough just to where they're not tacky, and I'm gonna be able to start to roll them out to make those little dumplings. Okay, this, a touch of flour inside the bowl, pick that up, let it just rest here for just maybe about 30 minutes. So I took the sweet potatoes, kneaded it in a little bit of flour, and then I let it rest there in a floured bowl. Now, cut off a manageable piece, a little bit of flour, and what we're looking for, let me just kind of show you the doughiness is. It's kind of tender like a pillow, not dense, not hard. For the size that it is, it's really kind of nice and light. Kind of feels like it might be a pastry. So I'm just gonna lightly roll this out. There we go. A little bit more manageable piece to work with. Uniform size, so they cook equally, okay? And we'll just knock off little 1-inch pieces. Go. About a tablespoon of salt to a gallon of water, remember that. And you definitely need it with the gnocchi. Start dropping these little dumplings down. When they float, they're gonna be done. We're gonna work them in batches, pull them out, let them cool. It's all coming together. That's how I want them done. Beautiful gnocchi, sweet potato gnocchi with a little bit of thyme and Parmesan cheese, all coming together for the traditional, untraditional items that we make here at the Fieri house or at the ranch for Thanksgiving. Now look at those. A little bit of salt water, took the sweet potato, mixed up the Parmesan cheese, gonna let these rest for just a second. Over here, I've got a little brown butter. So what I did is I started a pan, I'm gonna fire it back up now, started a cold pan, dropped the butter in there, and then slowly let it brown. If you drop the butter into a hot pan, automatically starts to brown, automatically starts to turn on you, and then you're chasing it down. So this right here, I've got it rendered down. I got a bunch of heat on it. Get it right to the brown butter look that I'm looking for. Just get nice and golden. Okay? Gets that little nuttiness to it. Now we'll go ahead, drop this in. And just giving these a chance to cool down a little bit, just to dry off a touch. The thyme in there. And all we're gonna do is just coat this a little bit. I gotta grab some Parmesan cheese. Okay, let that coat up a little bit. A little more heat on that braising liquid. A little Parm on top of that, and that's all she wrote. They're already nice and warm. Okay. First, that little pillow. Sweet potato. Melt in your mouth.
I'm making my roasted sweet potato soup with a penny-pinching powerhouse ingredient, ham hocks.
Oh, yeah.
I know.
That's so you.
So I'm actually just gonna take 2 smaller ham hocks, and we're just gonna make a little ham hock stock while we're getting our soup ready.
Hock stock.
So a couple of cups of chicken broth and actually a little bit of water. Part of saving money is using less of things that cost money in the first place. So I mix half water with double the amount of chicken stock, and I just put 2 smaller ham hocks, and that equals about a pound. And I'm just gonna get that simmering on the stove. We wanna cook down that liquid until the meat falls apart and flakes off the bone. So you just get that simmering. Sonny, I know that you love ham hocks too. They're one of your favorite ingredients. What do you like to do with them?
I love a ham hock, okay? In a pot of greens, like collard greens, turnip greens, mustard greens, Hoppin' John, in a pot with just some cabbage and some stock. I love a ham hock. Plus, you can just like make stock from the ham hock and use that for other stuff like grits and soups and things of that nature. Yes, ham hock on 10.
Okay, so once the ham hocks, chicken stock and water are simmering on the stove, we wanna really just cook that down until you're left with only about a cup of liquid, and you just flake the meat from the hocks right off the bone. And then you have your little stock, but we're actually not gonna add that until the end. The actual soup is just baked sweet potatoes, right? So while you're making your ham hock stock, you can also just be roasting some sweet potatoes in the oven. Yeah, I know.
It's the best.
I know.
Also, like ham hocks you buy, they're pre-cooked.
Totally.
Throw them in the freezer.
Smoked.
They're so great. They add anything. You know, traditionally for pea soup, right? Ham hocks and pea soup.
That's actually what inspired me. Was I was thinking, I just love split pea, and ham and sweet potatoes, just a great combo. So just peel the sweet potatoes, right? I don't even need to break them up that much. I used about 2 pounds of sweet potatoes, 6 or 7 medium to large potatoes will get you there. And then coconut milk.
Oh, my favorite.
What?
1.5
In the
cups.
heavens is going on over there, Miss Alex Guarnaschelli?
And then more money saving, my favorite ingredient, water.
Tap stock.
Absolutely. About the same amount of water. So half coconut milk, half water. And the coconut milk, it gives a lot of richness, but it also brings out, teases that natural sweetness and earthiness of the sweet potatoes. So we kind of have a 2-part soup here. Sweet potatoes, coconut milk, and water, and then our little ham hock stock that goes in at the last moment. It's kind of like a trio that comes together to make a beautiful song at the last minute. We have our little sweet potato coconut milk mix. We have our simmering little bits of ham hock flaked off the bone, and that makes this soup meaty. I mean, for me, that's what takes it over from a soup into a stew or a meal or that really satisfying taste. Of course, in honor of Geoffrey, I had to add a little bit of brown butter to this.
Of course.
I just felt it was critically important.
Wow.
So I made a little brown butter, just a few tablespoons, right? And to that, I'm gonna add just a tiny bit, half a teaspoon of cinnamon. We don't wanna overdo this with spices. It's really got a lot going on already. Touch of brown sugar, and then just some orange zest and juice. Just one orange, zested and juiced. And that kind of gives it that warm winter, fall kind of feeling.
Oh.
Stir that together. Okay, so we have our soup.
I can't wait to try this.
These are the sweet potatoes, right? And after the sweet potatoes and the coconut milk get nice and hot, you literally just puree them. I like to use a blender. You need that really smooth texture, really break up the sweet potatoes. If you use an immersion blender, I'll never know, and it'll be perfectly fine anyway.
There you go.
Yeah, they're okay.
Whisk the brown butter, get it almost liquidy with that orange juice, brown sugar, and just a hint of cinnamon. We don't want to add a ton of spices here, right? We're not going in pumpkin spice latte territory. We're really trying to stay focused on the starch sweetness of the sweet potatoes, and then that ham just blows into town like a sheriff in a Western. So here we go, right in there. Ham hocks, that stock. It's also a last minute thing that thins your soup out. If your soup's a little bit thick, sweet potato soup can get away from you a little bit. It can be kind of clunky and starchy. Tiny pinch of salt and pepper if it needs it at the end. There are a lot of flavors here. You don't need to do a ton of seasoning to get to the end. So here we are.
Man.
And you're really on a treasure hunt for those bits of ham hock, right?
Yep.
Oh, I love sweet potato soup, and then everybody wants all that meaty ham hock in there.
Delicious on 10.
I like to crack pepper on top and not even mix it in entirely. So when you ladle the soup in, there's a little bit of pepper floating on top. I mean, we could add herbs, scallions, things like that, but I kind of like it straight up just like this. Okay, taste. The real sleeper here is that there's no cream, there's no milk, there's nothing to dilute the sweet potato. The coconut milk is just kind of sweet and rich. And then you get that smoky ham kind of meandering through. Feels like kind of like a classic vegetable soup. And then the ham and the stock just makes it so hearty.
Love it.
Look at those bad boys right there. Now, the sweet potatoes, I don't think get enough play as well. You know, it's kind of like the same idea on the catfish. Here's this thing that has so much great flavor, has a great look to it, and doesn't really get used except for when we're doing the holiday time. Me, I'm going to do this nice little 1/4-inch slice on this, pop it in some oil, double fry it, you know, so we get it to cook twice, so we get a really nice crust on the outside. But here we go, just run a slicer across it. Here's what I'm looking for, peeler, slicer, you know, 220, 221. Cut this off. Now, here's what I'm going for. Right about here. That's what I'm looking for. And these are those shoestring, and the sweet potato does so well on this. So look at that. Look how nice that's gonna be. Nice, thin. We're gonna hit it with some malt vinegar, nice. So you're gonna get the complement between the sweetness and a little bit of the tang of the malt vinegar. Throw it into this ice bath. Let it start to pull out some of that starch so it even gets crispier. Now let's get over these potatoes. I've got some oil preheated. To what temperature? Well, we fry at 350 typically, right? Nope, not on this. On this, we're gonna go down at about 325, 320. And the reason is I wanna cook the meat or cook the flesh of this sweet potato, then I'm gonna take it out and let it cool down. So now it's gonna be cooked all the way through. On this second cooking, what's gonna happen is I'm actually gonna put the crisp on it, and that's gonna give the nice crunch. So I'll go in with about a handful. Watch yourself, or watch myself. There we go. Not too much, don't wanna overload it. So I've got about and we'll see here, that can come up on you real fast, go over into the fire, catches a fire. It's always good to have a fire extinguisher hanging out right here, ready to go. Looks like we're in good shape. I'll add a few more. Now, the sweet potato fries, I'm gonna make a little sprinkle, like a fry seasoning, and it's great on diners, drive-ins, and dives. I go around the country. I find the craziest things that people are using to season their fries with, and this is actually some inspiration I got on this, is putting a little bit of sugar in there, and I'm gonna do that here in just a second. Look at the great color on that, though. I think that when you're thinking about doing fries next time, the sweet potato is a nice little option to go with. Okay, my oil temperature came down again. I'm already down into the 300s, so I need to let it recover. I've got it on high. Actually, I just turned it off. I got it on high, and then I'll go in with that second fry for the first batch. Second fry, first batch, you know what I mean? Okay, fish looks good. Let's make this. Okay, paprika, not the super hot paprika, a little bit of the smoky paprika. Get that in. This could be made ahead of time also. The only idea with it is when you're using your spices and you're mixing them together, put them in another container, label them, and keep them in somewhere that's kind of cool and dark. A little granulated garlic, a little cumin, a little granulated onion, and here we go. This is the kicker right here, a little sugar, believe it or not. But it's nice, just gives that little sweet overtone there. And this goes great. I mean, look at what I put in there, you know, flavor-wise. This is gonna go so nice with these sweet potatoes. And they really do have a real nice sweetness to them. And a little black pepper. Okay. Mix this up. Now, right here, sweet potato fries. Oh, that's good. Sweet potato fries. First I cut them, soaked them in ice water, and pulled some of that starch out. And that was so when I fried them, I didn't have too much sugar in them, they didn't burn. Fried them once, let them cool down, fried them again, and check those bad boys out. Nice spice mixture with cumin and paprika and a little bit of sugar, actually.
Today, I'm making you a sweet gullet classic, and that is sweet potato pone. It's a sweet potato casserole, kind of sort of like a custard as well. It's a great side dish, or it can be served as a sweet dessert. My favorite way to serve it is with a sweet eggnog whipped cream. It really brings out those warm flavors. But before we get going, preheat your oven to 350 and get a 9x9 casserole dish and spray it with non-stick cooking spray. All right. Ain't nothing to it but to do it. Let's head over to our stove. So what we're doing now is heating our saucepan. I have a cute little pan here, but any saucepan will work. Let's melt 4 tablespoons of unsalted butter. I like using unsalted butter because I can control the amount of salt that goes into the dish. And right now we're just gonna wait for that butter to melt. Okay, just a few more seconds. And you can swivel your saucepan around just to help the melting go a little faster. And that's it, our butter is melted. All right, let's head back over to the counter. Set your butter to the side. And now we're gonna peel and grate about 2 pounds of sweet potato, which equals about 3 sweet potatoes, okay? So sweet potato pone is sort of like, well, it has the same flavors of a sweet potato pie, but it's more like a custard. It's gonna have a really soft but firm texture. You're gonna get the texture of the grated sweet potatoes in there as well, but it definitely has the flavor of a sweet potato pie. We're gonna peel all 3. Leaving none of the skin on. Okay. Right. And this is a recipe my great-grandmother passed down to my grandmother. It's something that she made in her household on special occasions. When she didn't feel like making a sweet potato pie, she would make a sweet potato pone. And she actually served it for breakfast. See? It's a very versatile dish. All right, let's clean up the potato skin. All right, we're gonna use the finer side of the grater. If you want larger strips of sweet potato, you can use this side, but I prefer to use the finer side, okay? What I like to do is just cut off the ends and just grate using the finer side. This is where you get your workout in. If you find this process a little too much, then you can always cook your sweet potatoes and then mash them. I prefer shredding like my great-grandmother did because I like the texture of shredded sweet potatoes in this dessert. So if you use the finer side of your grater, it should look something like this, thin shreds. It's a slow process. Things in Gullah just don't happen quickly. It's not fast food. If it comes easy, it won't last long. Okay. So gullah cooking is not really heavy on the desserts. I've found in recent years, over the last few decades, that we've incorporated more of just the Southern way of making desserts. But typically, gullah cooking does not have a lot of sweets. We have sweet potato pie, we have sweet potato pone, we make bread pudding, but just out of the way they lived during those times, like when my great grandmother was growing up, they just didn't have the resources. So if there was anything sweet, it would come from the land. My ancestors' definition of a dessert was getting a sweet watermelon from the watermelon patch, you know? It wasn't necessarily cakes and cookies. It was eating the sweets of the earth, like a sweet potato. It is the truth. My grandma, we didn't have no cakes. We had sweet potato pie, sweet potato pone, and bread pudding if we were lucky. Ooh, child. Triceps. So I'm going to keep grating these. I'll meet you back here when we're done. Okay, we've grated up all of our sweet potatoes. Now we're going to add that melted butter, 4 tablespoons, into a large bowl. Now we're going to add a 1/3 cup of light brown sugar. Make sure it's packed into your measuring cup. And we're going to add a 1/4 cup of molasses. I'm just going to eyeball this. Okay. Let's whisk together our sugars and butter. Okay. Leave your whisk in the bowl. Let's whisk together 3 eggs in a separate bowl. 3 whole eggs. And it's good to use a separate bowl for your eggs because you want to make sure that the eggs are thoroughly whisked. Just whisk until the yolk is broken. Okay. That whisk. Add your whisked eggs to the bowl. And now we're going to add a 1/2 cup of half and half. I'm going to add in a teaspoon of vanilla extract. That's just about 1 capful. Okay. Now we're going to add in our spices. We have a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, a 1/2 teaspoon of ginger. It's going to give it a really nice snap. A 1/2 teaspoon of kosher salt really brings those sugars out. All right, now we're just going to add in a little nutmeg. I'm using fresh. Fresh is much more pronounced than ground nutmeg, so use just a little more if you want that more of that nutmeg flavor, okay? All right, give it a whisk. And this is going to look like a custard, right? This is going to give you a custard in your bowl here. All right, we're just going to grate in a little bit of fresh orange zest, just to give it a little hint of citrus. So we grated in about a teaspoon of fresh orange zest. Now we're just going to add in the juice of half of this orange, about 3 tablespoons of freshly squeezed orange juice. Give it another whisk. Wipe your hands if you need to. This is not an overly sweet dessert. You're going to get a lot of that sweetness, fresh sweetness from the sweet potatoes, okay? Now we're just going to add in our grated sweet potato. And we're going to incorporate that with the spatula, okay? All right. Let's fold in our sweet potato with our custard. So folding in helps you mix all of your ingredients in without losing the volume. Just make sure the custard is fully mixed in with the sweet potatoes. I like to fold and pat, scraping the bottom up. All right, that looks great. Let's get our 9x9 casserole dish that's been sprayed with non-stick cooking spray, and just add in your mixture. Okay. All right, just fold it down here. Press it down firmly into your casserole dish here. Just fold it on down. Make sure it's nice and even. Okay. All right, so we're going to cover this with foil. All right, let's head over to the oven. Bake it covered for 40 minutes. Okay. And while that's in the oven, we're gonna put our bowl and mixer in the freezer. Remember, we gotta make this eggnog whipped cream. So let's get this chill for 40, hit pause, and I'll meet you back here soon. Hey, it's been 40 minutes and it's time to uncover our pone. Okay, let's take that foil right off, okay? In the next 10 minutes, it's gonna get nice and caramelized on top, okay? While that happens, let's make our eggnog whipped cream. Our bowl has been chilling for 40 minutes with the beater in the freezer. The reason I like doing that is to get a nice stapled whipped cream, okay? And it needs to be very cold in order to get that, okay? Now we're gonna add in a cup of heavy cream to our cold bowl. Okay. All right. And I like to add in a few tablespoons of confectioner's sugar here. That's gonna help get some of that volume in the whipped cream as well. Let's start off with 3 heavy tablespoons. You can taste to see if you can adjust, if you want to add more, but 3 tablespoons should do. All right, let's get our mixer on high. And we're just going to beat this until it gets nice and fluffy. We're looking for stiff peaks. There's one thing that I learned when I started making whipped cream at home is that if you beat too much, you will destroy that whipped cream. So slowly beat, and if it looks like it's getting thick, just take your time. Do not overbeat or you will have to start over again, okay? And it's already starting to get some volume. Now this is not a part of the original sweet potato pone recipe. I like to do my contemporary spins on my family's traditional recipes. So this is just a great addition to that sweet potato pone. Okay. Let's slow down. It looks like it's getting nice and thick, and we definitely have stiff peaks. Stiff because the bowl was cold, the beater was cold, and the heavy whipping cream is also cold, okay? Let's grate in some nutmeg. I'm using fresh, but you can definitely use ground nutmeg if you have that in your pantry. And let's say it's a 1/4 teaspoon of freshly grated nutmeg or ground nutmeg. Okay. Now we're gonna fold in a 1/3 cup of eggnog. Okay. Gently fold that in. You don't want to break your whipped cream, okay? That should do it. This is a great holiday whipped cream. It's really going to bring forth those warm flavors in the pone. Okay, that looks nice and velvety. Let's taste just to make sure we don't need to add any more nutmeg. That's great. It's velvety. You taste a hint of that eggnog and the nutmeg. That is going to go really great on top of that sweet potato pone. So this is done. We have a few more minutes on that pone. Hit pause and I'll meet you back here in a few. Alrighty, it's been 10 minutes. Our sweet potato pone has been cooking uncovered. Now it's done. So let's pull it out of the oven. Oh, it smells incredible, doesn't it? Okay. Look at that. Nice and golden brown, super bubbly on the edges. Okay, so the best way to serve sweet potato pone is at room temperature. That way it's already set and gets nice and solid. So let this rest for about 30 minutes and we'll meet back and taste it. All right, so it's been about 30 minutes and our sweet potato pone has come to room temperature. Let's plate and taste it. Okay. What I like to do is cut just a little square. Just loosen it up around the edges. Take a cake server and just scoot underneath. It's a nice little size for myself. And that's how it should look when you take it out of your casserole dish. Now let's top it with our whipped eggnog cream. Just a little dollop on top. All right, give it a try. Oh yeah, this smells delicious. I don't know about you, but it's making me dance. The texture of the sweet potatoes, it's velvety, it's smooth, getting all of the flavors of the nutmeg, the cinnamon. I definitely taste that orange zest and orange juice. It just complements those warm spices really well. And then that whipped eggnog cream just smooths everything on out. This is Gullah sweet potato pone.
Hey everybody, I'm Molly A from Girl Meats Farm, and today I'm going to show you how to make sweet potato knishes. Knishes are hearty filled pastries that are typically filled with potatoes or veggies or meat. The dough is chewy and wraps all around the filling that peeks out on top. And I'm going to show you how to make my sweet potato version. Okay, so if you're baking along with me, make sure your oven is preheating to 400 degrees and get a sheet pan ready. To start, let's make our dough. Get a big bowl and add 1 3/4 cup of flour to it. And then add 2 teaspoons of sugar. And a teaspoon of kosher salt. Next, grab your measuring cup and add a 1/2 cup of water and a 1/4 cup of neutral oil. And grab a rubber spatula, mix up your dry ingredients just to combine, and then mix in your wet ingredients. So you'll mix this up to form a dough, and then you're gonna knead it until it's smooth and slightly sticky. This is just a super simple dough, and it's all purpose, so you can make any kind of knish with this dough. Mix it until everything is combined, and then we're gonna turn it out onto our work surface and knead it. And you can have some flour standing by in case your dough starts to get a little sticky. Okay, I'm gonna show you how to knead dough by hand. So dust your work surface, and then to knead it, just press it with the palm of your hand, fold it over, give it a little turn, and then press it again, and just keep repeating that process. And this develops the gluten, so you have a nice chewy dough, and it also softens it and brings everything together. Okay, so these knishes are inspired by my favorite knish in New York. I used to live on the Upper West Side, and there was a place there that would have sweet potato knishes that were so sweet. I almost felt like I was eating a donut when I would eat them. They were so good and hearty and perfect for strolling around and snacking. Okay, so as you're kneading your dough, you can dust it with a little flour to make it easier to work with. Try not to dust it with too much flour though, otherwise your dough will get dry. But just keep on working it. It's a nice little arm workout, make you earn your knishes. This is a really lovely smooth dough to work with. As you work it, it's gonna get smoother and smoother. Okay, Once your dough is looking really nice and smooth, you can stretch it into a ball by tucking the ends under. And now we're gonna let it rest. Letting it rest will allow the glutens to relax, and it'll make it easier to roll out once it gets time to form our knishes. So wrap it in some plastic wrap. And then set this aside while you mix up your filling. Okay, grab your bowl of sweet potatoes. This is a great way to use up leftover mashed sweet potatoes. And these have just been boiled until tender and then mashed. And now melt 4 tablespoons of butter, and you can do that in the microwave or in a cute little butter warmer like this. Let's grab some heavy cream. And while you're at it, grab an egg. Okay, now we're ready to make the filling. Okay, so to your sweet potatoes, add 3 tablespoons of heavy cream. This will make the filling really creamy and good. Season with a few pinches of kosher salt. Sweeten it with a couple of tablespoons of brown sugar. The molassesy flavor in brown sugar goes so nicely with the sweet potato flavor. Okay, and now let's add our spices. So add 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. This filling is loaded with warm spices that just scream fall and coziness. Add half a teaspoon of cloves. And then a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. Check to see if your butter is melted. Oh yeah, that's looking good. That's perfect. Okay, add most of this. Reserve a tablespoon of butter though. We're gonna use that last tablespoon for the topping. So just set this aside for now. Okay, now mix up your filling. Mix it up until it's all combined. These are basically mini sweet potato pies that we're making. Okay, so these are not rocket science. You can switch up the fillings. You could make a savory filling if you want. Maybe do just like mashed potatoes and cheese or some spices. You could do different veggies. You could do like potato and spinach would be really good. You could do seasoned ground beef. There are so many different things that you can make knishes with. And if you guys want at this point, you could take a taste of this filling and make sure that all the seasonings are where you want them to be. If you want to add a little more cloves or nutmeg, add a little more cloves or nutmeg. If you want it to be sweeter, add more sugar. I'm gonna do that. This is perfectly sweet, just where I want it. Okay, so the filling is prepared, and now let's make our topping. So grab a smaller bowl, and then also grab a cup of chopped pecans. These are gonna be a nice crunchy topping for the knishes. Add the remaining tablespoon of butter, and some cinnamon, a couple pinches of salt, and then sweeten it with some brown sugar. And just stir this to combine. Whenever I'm thinking of recipes, I love to combine a variety of textures. So with these, the outside dough is gonna be chewy after it bakes, the inside is gonna be soft and fluffy, and then the top is gonna be crunchy and nutty. It's gonna be so delicious. Okay, the topping is ready to go. Let me just tidy up a little. And now the last thing before we assemble is let's make our egg wash. So grab a small bowl and your egg. You can crack the egg in. And then add a splash of water. And whip it up. And this egg wash is gonna act as the glue that holds our knishes together, and it's also gonna get brushed around the outside to make them shiny. Okay, and now grab your dough. And it's time to assemble. So unwrap your dough. You could dust your work surface with a little more flour. And I'm just gonna have this little cup of flour standing by in case the dough gets too sticky. I'm just gonna work with half of my dough for now. And now I'll divide this into 6 pieces to make 6 medium-sized knishes. So to do that, I just like to roll it out into a big fat snake and divide it in half. And then divide each half into thirds. So now you have 6 even pieces. And now stretch these pieces into balls, which will make it easier to roll out perfect circles. And just tuck the ends under and pinch them on the bottom. Place them down like that. This dough is so nice and soft. Do you guys feel that? Knishes are basically like big baked dumplings. And I'm obsessed with dumplings. So, you know I love these. And these are not very difficult. It's a really simple dough, really simple filling. And I'll show you, it's gonna be so much fun to mold these. Okay, now grab a rolling pin. I'm using this small tapered rolling pin. I feel like I get more control with it. And now, dust your surface with a little more flour. And then pat out a ball of dough, and then use your rolling pin to roll it into a thin circle that's about 6 or 7 inches in diameter. And I like to rotate it every so often to make sure that it's not sticking to the work surface, and also so that I can get an evenly shaped circle. So if it ever starts to stick to your rolling pin or to your work surface, just dust it with more flour. Okay, how are your circles looking? Are they looking good? It's time to fill. Grab a pastry brush and your egg wash and brush it all around the edges. And this is going to be the glue that helps the knishes hold their shape. Okay, now place a big pile of filling in the centers. And I like using a scoop for this so that all the knishes are evenly sized. Okay. Okay, and just kind of flatten out your filling a little bit. So it's kind of just a big, thick patty of filling in the middle of the dough. And now to shape your knishes, fold up the dough and pleat it, almost as if you're making a galette. And they're supposed to be a little rustic. Okay, give the sides a little hug and let some of the sweet potato filling peek out the top. It'll be really pretty that way. Okay, so again, just start at the top. Give them a hug. And now let's transfer to the sheet tray. And the parchment will prevent the knishes from sticking. And now transfer your knishes. And you can use your bench scraper or a spatula to help them up. They're basically handheld pies. Okay, let's keep on going, filling our knishes. The best way to get better is with practice. Okay, the last one. Now, before they go in the oven, let's brush them with some egg wash. And egg wash will make them extra pretty and shiny around the outside. So just brush on a thin, even layer. You don't want to add too much egg wash, otherwise it could burn on the pan. Oops, like I just did. You could just brush that back on. Okay, now before they get baked, let's add our crunchy, nutty topping. Just add a handful right on top. And in the oven, this is gonna crisp up. This is gonna be the perfect touch. Gorgeous. Beautifully rustic. See, that wasn't so difficult. Now bake these at 400 degrees for 20 minutes until they're browned. These sweet potato knishes look beautiful. I hope yours turned out just as well. Okay, I have to sneak a taste. They're so cute. I love the way the crust holds its shape in the oven. Okay, here I go. They're a little warm. The dough is so satisfyingly chewy, and the innards are perfectly spiced and so sweet, and I love that crunchy topping. I hope you're enjoying these as much as I am. Keep on knishing, you guys.
Sweet potato fries, and I got a great trick for making them extra crispy.
And a big old sweet potato right here. Lop off the ends of that and cut it in half. Very easy way to make that French fry shape at home without investing in some large contraption, right? So you want to cut them into these kind of rectangular planks. And then once you got these planks like that, see them? Now you can cut them into perfectly fry-shaped strips. Look at that. All right, that is the last of my French fries. Excuse me. It's called me chips. All right, you want them like that. They look like a French fry, right? We crisp them up in a minute. We season them. Beautiful. Now on to our fries. How do you keep these things from getting all limp and, you know, not palatable or crispy? You cook them in the oven at home. You fry them at home. You just can't get that same effect you do at the restaurants or the fast food joints. This is a great little trick. 2 ingredients, cornstarch, and believe it or not, club soda. So we're gonna take a cup of cornstarch, it'll coat it nice. It's just a really light weight of bread. 2/3 of a cup of club soda. Awesome. Get it on there. Look at all that bubble. Something's happening there, something magical. Beautiful. The cornstarch is gonna hit that hot oil and just crisp up. Mix it up, get a handful, check your oil, looking perfect. I got my oil at 375. Get them right in there. Now you wanna move them a little bit. This is when they tend to stick together. They're making lots of noise, which means these fries are having a party in there, which means they will be crispy. Now, how are we gonna season these? Well, I got some smoked paprika, garlic powder, real simple seasoning. This stuff's the best. Deep, dark, smoky red color. Of course, a little salt. And for that kind of fast food fry element, I like a little bit of sugar with my French fries. A couple pinches in there. And mix this thing up. It's a beautiful color, look beautiful right on that orange. Of course, taste it. Almost tastes just like a barbecue chip. And you know what? I love barbecue chips. I love barbecue chips. So I like to season my fries. I like barbecue chips. It's the best.
Here we go. Coming out of the fryer, hot, glistening. This is the best they'll ever be, so work fast at this point. Season them now when they're hot and glistening with oil, so all that seasoning adheres to it. The smoked paprika, the garlic powder, the sugar, a little salt in there. Get them good. A lot of seasoning on this. You want these things to pop in your mouth, right? Speaking of popping in your mouth, this is the time I love to have a fry, right? Walk the walk, talk the talk. So hot, so tasty, smoky from the paprika. I love it. I'm ready. I'm gonna put our fries, old school French style, right into there. Oh, and there you have it.
Sweet potato gratin. I know you've seen sweet potatoes done a bunch of ways. I'm not a big sweet potato casserole guy, and don't talk to me about marshmallows and brown sugar and all that. I'm not into it. But when you take sweet potatoes and put it with some onions and do what we're gonna do on the grill, we're gonna have the smokiness of the grill. We're gonna put a little char on it. We're gonna put it together with some half and half and a little bit of time. You wait, you're gonna love these. So I peeled the sweet potatoes, real fun task. I'm cutting them, don't worry about that one, you gotta offer one up. Take the ends off, try to get uniform size. We'll hit them with a little bit of salt, pepper, and olive oil and go to the grill. Started it with charcoal, got some nice oak on there. There we go. Okay, so those are all done. Let me grab a sheet tray. Slide them onto a sheet tray. We'll hit a little bit of olive oil, salt, and pepper, and then we'll talk about what's gonna ride shotgun on this gratin dish. How about, exactly, some sweet onions, Vidalia onions to be exact. So grab a couple Vidalia. There we go. Some olive oil drizzle, fresh cracked black pepper, and some salt. I got dogs barking in the backyard, hanging out in my back. Listen, this is my favorite time. Chilling back here, kids aren't running around, pool's not going nuts, dogs aren't begging, somebody's dog's barking, and I'm cooking and you're hanging, good deal. Okay, we move this around. We'll go down with the onions here. Having that type of grill where you can take small onions or potatoes that would normally fall through the grates and where you can get that radiant heat and you can get some of that smoke flavor coming through, just takes a regular gratin to the next level. So now we're gonna make the half and half mixture that we're gonna pour over this gratin. So we're gonna kind of partially cook the potatoes here. Not all the way, they're still gonna have to go in the oven. But what we're gonna do, we'll get a couple cups of half and half in there. You know what makes my mouth water also? Horseradish. Talk about bringing up the flavor. I don't know, 4 tablespoons in here. I don't think you could do too much in this. And there we go. Awesome. Now we'll get a little bit of thyme in there. They can just fall right in. They're gonna steep a little bit in this half and half. Okay. There, little S&P. This is sweet potatoes that have gone savory. The thyme in the half and half, the horseradish. Harvest these off. I got some Vidalia onions, and I'm looking for that. I want that color. I don't want boring gratin that just kind of looks like it's just, you know, it's just been sitting there simmering in milk. Okay, we'll bring that off. So the gratin was 3 layers. I layered it with the Gruyere. Then you put the sweet potato, and then you put the caramelized onions, and then you repeat that 3 times. Perfect. And then you put some more of the cheese on top. This is where it all comes together, is we pour this right on top. Horseradish, thyme. You see that horseradish coming out right there? Kind of move that around a little bit. That horseradish spread out. That's just gonna soak right down into it. Fantastic. Now, we'll do that. Throw some foil on it. The wood-fired oven's rocking right around, I don't know, 350, maybe 400. 350 is what we're looking for, so we'll have to keep an eye on it. And we'll let this go for about 30 minutes. I put it on the sheet tray just in case we get a little bit of a bubble over. I don't want it burning the deck of the oven. It definitely changes the flavor of pizza. But if you have a regular conventional oven, 350, do the tray idea. It'll save you from having to do the cleanup. Okay, in we go. It's gonna be hot. But look at that bubbling madness Sweet potatoes done in this real savory style. No brown sugar marshmallows on this. Are you kidding me? Oh, that is outrageous. Okay, so now what I need to do is slide it back in, let it brown on top a little bit, but it is going good. Sweet potato onion gratin, baked with thyme, horseradish, and Gruyere cheese until bubbly. I mean, these flavors are on point.
So we're gonna make some grilled sweet potato wedges with a molasses butter. And I'm gonna add some orange to that as well. But first thing I'm gonna do is get the sweet potatoes on the grill. Now what I did was I par-cooked these first. I boiled them for about 15 to 20 minutes till they're soft all the way through, and then you wanna let them cool. Now you can do a couple different things. You can actually cut them into wedges, which is nice. It's a cool shape, and they have a lot of surface area for some charring. Or you can cut them into circles, like that. So I think we'll do a little bit of each. Smaller wedges. Makes it a little more interesting. So we're just going to brush with a little canola oil and salt and pepper, and that's something you hear me say a lot. For vegetables, for meats, I really keep it simple. I don't mix it up when it comes to, how I'm gonna grill things. I bring all the flavor to the party either by using spice rubs or glazers or barbecue sauces, but when I'm grilling something, it's usually canola oil, salt and pepper, because you're always gonna have those things in the pantry. A little salt and pepper. Let's go to the grill. All right, we have a nice hot grill here, and we par-cooked the sweet potatoes, so that all we're really doing is kind of heating them through and charring them on the outside. All right, while those are cooking, we can make our molasses butter very quickly. I'm just gonna take some butter that's completely soft. You see how nice and room temperature that is? A little salt and pepper. Some orange zest. Orange and molasses goes really well together. And I'm making a compound butter. Chefs make compound butters all the time. Just some unsalted butter, and then you can add any kind of flavor you want. It could be an herb butter like basil. It could be a honey butter. I make an orange honey butter for biscuits, but I love the idea of molasses for these sweet potatoes. And just a pinch of cinnamon. And you want to make sure your butter is ready to go when your sweet potatoes come off the grill, because we're gonna actually paint them with the butter while the sweet potatoes are still warm. All right, let's flip our sweet potatoes. Beautiful char on the outside. Remember, they're already cooked through, so we're just getting some color on them and some of that smoky flavor. Perfect. Let's quickly slice up some green onions. This will be the garnish on top of our sweet potatoes. Get them. And I like the idea of having different shapes. Looks nice. All right, so when they're still warm, take your butter and just quickly brush the molasses butter on them. We don't want to drown them in butter, we just want to enhance the flavor of the sweet potatoes with the molasses, the butter, the orange, the cinnamon. It's beautiful. And, don't forget, we're cooking some Southern food here. Sweet potatoes, Southern, molasses, one of sweet potatoes' best friends. Look how beautiful that looks. A little sprinkling of green onions, and there we go. Let's give it a taste. I'm a huge sweet potato fan. Love, love, love sweet potatoes because it has a really nice natural sweetness to them. But then you add a little butter with some of the molasses, it just brings out the natural sweetness of the sweet potato even more so. And this is just, an easy way, and it's quick. It doesn't take any time at all to get that Southern flavor going. Right in your own backyard.
It's really gonna elevate the flavors. I've just been cutting up some peeled sweet potatoes into big chunks, and I'm gonna coat them in cornstarch. I'm cooking these in the slow cooker in a little bit of a liquid, and the cornstarch will help the sweet potato sauce really thicken as they cook. Adding about 1.5 tablespoons of cornstarch. And I'm gonna toss the potatoes in the cornstarch until they're all coated. Okay, those are all tossed. So I'm gonna pour these right in. Now I'll add 4 tablespoons of butter and kind of scatter it around. This is such an easy way to make sweet potatoes. I'm gonna add a cup of brown sugar, a teaspoon of pumpkin pie spice, and you know me, I've got to add a little cayenne pepper. And then a splash of vanilla. And then I squeeze the juice out of an orange. Oh, the combination of flavors is amazing. And then just a little bit of water, about a 1/4 cup, and that just helps the sauce become a little more saucy. Some salt. Okay, now the lid goes on. And I'm gonna cook this for 3 hours on low, and I'll stir it from time to time. Can't believe it, my work here is done. To serve up, I took a pretty platter, tipped out the sweet potatoes, sprinkled over chopped toasted walnuts, and chopped parsley.
Hi, I'm Carla Hall, and today we're talking pie. I'm gonna be making a sweet potato pie. You're gonna be making it with me. I love sweet potato pie. It is a holiday classic. We're gonna have some fun. So you're gonna wanna have your oven set at 350 degrees. You're gonna want 2 sticks of butter cubed in your fridge. You also are gonna wanna have 5 tablespoons of butter out. You don't have to cube that, just sit it out. It needs to be at room temperature. And let's get out 2 eggs. So the first thing that I do for my sweet potato pie is I bake sweet potatoes. These are gonna bake until they're soft. It's gonna take about 1.5 to 2 hours because you wanna make sure that you can actually press them in there if they're soft. All right, let's go in. You ready? Let's make some crust. First thing we're gonna do, we're gonna take 1/3 cup of water, a 1/2 teaspoon of fine sea salt. It's fine salt because I want it to be able to dissolve, and a tablespoon of sugar. Because I'm making a pie, I want my pie crust to be a little sweet. That's why I use the sugar. And we're just gonna stir that so that can start to dissolve. And we're gonna put it in the fridge. It's really important for everything to be cold for your pie crust. Now let's measure the flour. All of the attention to detail is really important. So let's make sure that our flour is aerated. So I'm gonna take my spoon and aerate my flour. You can do this with a whisk. If you don't have one of these canisters for your flour, just dump your flour in a bowl so that you have space to whisk it or to aerate it with your fingers. If you do have a sifter, sift your flour before you measure it. Okay, we need 2¼ cups of flour, so I'm gonna spoon my flour into my measuring cup. Careful not to tap it down because all the work that we just did by aerating it, we undo it by tapping. Don't worry about piling it up, it's fine. Okay. And then we're gonna get a straight edge. I have this offset spatula. If you have a knife, if you have a bench scraper. Okay, measuring. It's that easy. And it makes a big difference. Let's do the 1/4 cup. It's okay if you make a mess. Ready? Boom. All right. So the flour's in there, and let's grab our butter. They're nice and cold into the flour. Now let's toss the butter into the flour and then break apart any pieces that are stuck together. We want to make sure that each butter cube is all tossed in the flour. This is the cutting process. Now, instead of doing it by hand, and sometimes you could do it by fork, sometimes you have that cutting tool, sometimes you can make pie crust in the food processor, which, by the way, you can do this in the food processor. I happen to like it in the mixer because I feel like I have more control and I can see what's going on. Okay. This last piece, we break that apart. And you see that? If I didn't break this apart and toss in the flour, this exposed piece of butter would then stick to the paddle, and we don't want that. Okay, let's get our paddle. Let's put that on. That's all set. Now I'm gonna grab my water. All right, everything is all dissolved. If your salt hasn't dissolved, then take your spoon and just stir it again. All right, we're about to do this. All you need to know how to do right now is turn on the mixer. Not on high, just on medium speed. All right? So now what's happening, our butter is starting to get cut into the flour, and we're gonna take this water and we're gonna dump it all in at once. How easy is that? So now, you see what's happening? The butter is starting to mix into that flour, and as soon as it all comes together, we're gonna have those pea-sized butter pieces, and then it's gonna come together, and then you're done, okay? 3, 2, 1. You see that? Okay, we're gonna lift this up. Look at that. We take this off the paddle. Okay, let's just get this out of the bowl, all of our bits. Okay, look at this. This is actually enough for 2 crusts, so we divide it in half. And we're gonna make 2 discs. The reason I'm gonna make these round is because I'm going into a round pie plate, and I don't wanna have to work so hard. If my pie plate is square or rectangle, then I would change the shape of the dough before it goes into the fridge. All right, so here's 1 piece of plastic. All right, 2 pieces of plastic. Now the reason I do this double pie crust, because if you're doing a pie, let's say like an apple pie, and it's a double pie, then one's for the top and one's for the bottom. Place that there, place that one there, and we're gonna wrap it. And then I use the plastic wrap now to press down and bring my pie crust together if it didn't come together. Plastic wrap is your friend. Okay, let's wrap that. And you can see those bits of butter, which is exactly what you want to see. The reason that you want everything cold is because there is water in butter. When the butter goes into the oven, that water creates steam, and that's what gives you your flakiness. Okay. All right, this goes in the fridge. It has to go in the fridge for at least 30 minutes because it will allow the glutens to rest. If the glutens don't rest, that's when your pie crust shrinks away from the pie shell. Okay, let's get that in. So I'm only using 1 pie crust for this pie, so I use that one in 30 minutes. The other one can be in the fridge for about 3 days, or it can live in the freezer for up to 3 months. Now we just need to wait for 30 minutes. Pause your video, and we're gonna get to rolling out that pie crust. All right, it's been 30 minutes. Time to roll out our dough. I have some bench flour here. I take my flour and I just sort of flick my wrist, and I don't wanna have a lot of flour. We don't wanna add a lot of flour to our cutting board. What you don't want to do, sometimes we get into the thing of like doing flour like this. You have these clumps of flour, so just make sure that you are just flicking your wrist. Let's practice that. Flick, 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 flick. So now I place my disc in the middle and I do a little flicking there, and now I grab my rolling pin. So I take a little more flour, I rub it on my rolling pin. Now, so we have space, bang your dough just to kind of warm it up a little bit. And I'm gonna be doing these quarter turns. Okay. The only reason I'm doing that is so that I don't have to work so hard with my arms, although it's a little bit of a workout. So now, the one thing that we wanna make sure is that we can move this dough at all times. We don't want our dough to get stuck on the cutting board. So I start in the middle and I push out. Don't roll over that edge right here because that tends to get stuck on the cutting board. I turn it around and then I start in the middle and I roll out. In the middle and roll out, okay? Make sure it can move. If If you don't have any more flour on your rolling pin, just add a little bit of flour. Now I did that quarter turn because I've gone forward. Now what I want to do, because I want a circle, I turn it a quarter turn and I'm going to roll out this way. So roll out. And if you want to come back, rolling toward yourself, it's out, making sure that you can always move the dough. And then at this point, let's just look at our dough and see where we need to roll it in order to make a circle. Okay. How does that feel? You see how beautiful that looks, and it looks really nice and smooth. Okay. I need a little more flour. How about you? Do you need more flour on your rolling pin? Out. Okay. We're going to roll our dough to about 1/8 of an inch thick. Look at that. Look how pretty that looks, and it's really smooth, and it's still really cool. If at any time your dough gets warm, pop it on a sheet tray and put it into the fridge, and just wait for 10 minutes. Before we continue, let's grab our pie plate. We want to make sure it's big enough. And again, making sure that your crust can move. So put it down like this. We need to roll our dough so that we have at least 2 inches all the way around, because this is a really deep pie plate. So I have a little more rolling to do. That's a good test so that we don't get to the end and then we have to take it out and roll it again. So let's roll it some more. Making sure it moves. Let's do our test one more time. That looks great, right? Now we're going to move our crust to our pie plate. There are a couple different ways we can do this. We can take our pie crust and we can roll it like this and then roll it out. Or we can fold it 2 times like this. I find this to be easier. And we see where the center is and we unfold just like that. Whatever works for you. There's always more than one way to skin a cat. If you have nails, then use the back of your finger and do this so that you don't tear it. Okay. If your pie crust gets warm, pop this entire thing into the fridge. So we see that we have a little bit that's going over the edge. We want to trim this, but we also want to keep just enough to fold under. You know, when we have that pie crust and it's that nice thick edge, that comes from folding the excess under, but we don't need all of that. So we can take a knife or scissors, and I still want to keep about 1/2 of an inch. So I'm going to start to cut around. See that? Now what we're going to do is take this that we have left and we're going to tuck it under. Just go all around the pie. It's looking good, right? So now, because I have this crimped pie shell, I can just make sure that in these ridges, I just push the pie crust down. We don't have to worry about crimping the edge, but I just want to show you a quick way of crimping the edge. So I take my thumb and my forefinger, I put a little flour on it, and I just press like this. This is a really easy way to make a crimped edge. And you can always use a fork, you can use a knife, you can do all kinds of different things. But for this, we're just going to make a really simple edge. The reason we're crimping is to make sure that the pie crust, when it bakes, it doesn't slide down. Okay. So we're going to take our pie crust and we're going to put it in the freezer so it can get really, really cold until it's time to make our filling. All right, so we have our crust in the freezer. We have our sweet potatoes in the oven, and those need to cook until they get soft enough, 1.5, 2 hours. I don't know how much time you have left, but now it's a waiting game. So let's pause and then come back when we can make our filling. Are you smelling that? that caramelized sugar, those sweet potatoes baking. All right, let's get those sweet potatoes out. So let's see if they're done. Yep, the knife is going through so easily. Check them all. Okay, let's let these potatoes cool. And also, remember to switch your oven and crank it up to 425. It was at 350, now we're gonna crank it up. All right. Pie crust out. This is plenty cold. My crust is really, really hard. That's exactly the way that we want it. Now I'm gonna grab some aluminum foil. So we're gonna blind bake our pie crust. The reason that you blind bake the pie crust is so that you have that nice, crispy, golden, cooked pie crust before you put the filling in. So I have my foil. I'm gonna grab my pie weights, alias beans. I just put them in the bottom of my pie crust. Now, pie weights are generally ceramic balls, but you can use anything to weigh down the pie itself. So you can use rice, you can use beans. If you don't weigh down the dough, then as the pie bakes, it's going to flake up, which means that your pie crust is going to be all bubbly and it will not be the shape of your pie pan. So in order to force the pie crust down, we put something to weigh down that process, and we bake it like this. So we're gonna put this right in the oven. The lower third of your oven is best so that the bottom, you really want that bottom to get nice and brown. This is gonna bake for about 25 minutes and then we're gonna take the foil out. Okay, into the oven we go. Cooking is all about timing and doing things with that downtime. So while our pie crust blind bakes, we're going to make our filling. So our sweet potatoes have cooled enough, we can start to peel them. If there are any visible eyes or any yucky parts to your potato, then just make sure you take that off as well. Can you see the difference between a freshly baked potato and what might be sweet potatoes in the can? This is much drier. Your filling will be nice and thick and flavorful and not diluted by water. When you know you're gonna make your sweet potato pie, you can also cook your sweet potatoes ahead of time. Oh, look at this potato. It's beautiful. I'm gonna grab a bowl that I'm gonna make the filling in. So I'm gonna transfer my sweet potatoes to the bowl. Now let's just mash our potatoes. Okay. This is so satisfying to me. So you wanna mash them until you can incorporate other ingredients. How you doing? Is that arm burning yet? Okay, true story, mine is. Okay. You don't have to get it perfectly smooth because we're gonna whisk it later. Now, we just need to measure our sweet potatoes. We need 2.5 cups. Just wanna get this measured. Grab a spatula if you need it to get them out of your measuring cup. Okay, let's get another cup. Okay, now we have another 1/2 cup. 2.5 cups of mashed sweet potatoes, and we're gonna start adding our other ingredients. So I need 1/2 teaspoon of salt. I have cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon. 1/2 teaspoon of ground ginger. This is all about taste. This is allspice. You can always come back and add more of these spices. You can add less, so taste as you go. Now we're gonna put in some nutmeg. I like to use the whole, and the reason I like to use whole spices when possible, especially nutmeg, because the fragrance is so nice. So you need a microplane. 1/4 teaspoon. Now let's get a 1/2 cup of light brown sugar. Brown sugar is just regular sugar with molasses, so you're gonna get some of those really deep sugary notes. And I just pack it a little bit in there. Now let's mix. So I just push the spices and the sugar into the sweet potatoes. You see how the sweet potatoes are loosening up? Let's talk about the butter. Room temperature butter, when you're talking about it in baking, is about 68 to 70 degrees. It should bend slightly like this. It shouldn't just collapse. This is room temperature. So I'm gonna put that in. And I am just gonna slowly incorporate that in. I'm gonna move my whisk aside and come back to it. Now I have my spatula getting all down there. The sides. Now let's add our eggs. If you're a little nervous about cracking your egg and putting it into the bowl, crack it in a smaller bowl so you can make sure that there are no shells in it, and then dump in. So I have the 2 eggs here. I do them one at a time because I want to be able to incorporate the egg, because as you can see, when you incorporate liquid, everything separates. But we're gonna keep stirring. It's gonna come together. See that? Let's get our next egg. All right, crack. I'm putting it over to the side so if there are any shells, I can see them. You see how the color is lightening up with the butter and the egg? Okay, I'm going back to the whisk because I'm gonna add in our evaporated milk. Evaporated milk doesn't have as much water in it. I'm gonna pour in a little bit at a time just to incorporate it with our whisk. You see how I'm working over here on the edges of the bowl? I don't try to incorporate the entire thing at once. So I don't want to fight with my bowl or the sweet potatoes. Okay, let's go in with some more. Okay. Are you smelling that? Gentle. Whisk gently so that doesn't slosh out of your bowl. All right, I think we can finish it now. Okay, just want to whisk everything together, and you see how it's loosened up, but it's still rather thick. That's going to be a delicious pie with wonderful texture. And it's okay that you have some of those lumps. Those are going to be perfectly fine. It's going to be so delicious. So our filling is done, and it's quite tasty. Let's go check on our pie crust. I think it's time to pull it out. Carefully, okay. So I'd already started to smell it, and you can see how the crust was getting a little bit brown here. And just be really careful. Use the mitts if you need to, because these are hot and the beans are hot. You want to make sure that you keep everything together and carefully remove those beans. Let them cool before you put them back into the container. So look at our pie crust. You can see how it's all brown here. Right here inside, there are some wet spots where it's not quite cooked. This is why you go back in for 5 more minutes. Okay, carefully. All right. Okay, it's time to get our crust out. So now we need to take our hot crust and let it cool down because we have this room temperature filling. If we were to put the filling into the crust now, all of the work that we did with that room temperature butter, it would melt and it would ruin the texture of our pie. It's nice and cool. Okay, so we're just going to fill our pie. This is going to be so good. Let me get my offset spatula. So I'm just spreading out my filling because it's fairly thick. Okay. And you don't have to worry about any lines because they're going to bake out. So our pie is gonna go in. It's gonna go in still at 425 for 15 minutes, and then we're gonna lower the temperature to 350 for about 40 minutes. Let's go in right now. Let's check our pie. If you think that your crust is good, leave it in the oven. I'm gonna take my pie out right now, and I'm gonna put some foil on the edges. It looks so good right now. This is the perfect brownness. So what I'm gonna do is take little strips of foil, and I'm just going to crimp it around. It's hot, don't burn yourself. But this is gonna keep your crust perfectly brown. Just have like 2-inch strips to go around it. All right, so let's get this back in the oven. Let's get this in. Let's put our pie on a baker's rack because it's really important as it cools for that air to circulate all around the pie. Oh my gosh. Oh. You're gonna wanna let your pie cool for at least 60 minutes. With the first slice, it really helps to make 3 cuts because it makes that first slice come out much easier. Oh, it's cutting so nicely. Okay, that's my first cut. My second cut. Do my third cut. Okay, so I'm gonna go in and get my pie out. You ready for this? Look at that. Come on. Right? I know. I'm so happy for you all. Okay. Onto the plate. This has been so much fun. And now it's the payoff. The textures of the sweet potato pie with those little bits of sweet potato, this is exactly what I loved about my grandmother's sweet potato pie. I'm gonna dedicate this slice to my granny. Thank you, Granny, for these memories. And thank you for cooking with me. This has been so much fun. I hope you're enjoying it.